This is Dr. Richard Wood, sending out a big thank you to Jesse Lee Peterson and Hake for an interesting chat about obstetric ultrasound and autism. Time was limited, so we ended our chat leaving out one of Jesse's questions partially answered, and Hake didn't get the opportunity to ask Grok a more specific follow-up question about ultrasound causing thermal and inflammatory injuries to fetal brains. I'm going to answer Jesse's question and follow up with Grok in this video. Let's have a listen. Ultrasound causes burn injuries and inflammation to the brain cells of babies. The information's been out there for 50 years. Ultrasound became a big deal. You know, everybody wants to see gender reveals.
Yeah.
And they have gender reveal parties. So for the past 50 years, the more ultrasound we use, we used to have autism of 0.5% as a baseline. Now it's 4%. And there's a direct correlation between ultrasound and Doppler use and the rise of the epidemic of autism. When women are made aware of that, they laugh at it. They say, "Oh, ha, ha, you're such a quack." and what's wrong with you? And they want their gender reveal parties. They want their photos to show to their friends. All they have to do is wait 10 months and have the birthday party and say, okay, it's a boy, it's a girl. But instead, they're purposefully allowing ultrasound to target their baby over and over. They can go to shopping malls and get as many as they want. They can buy Dopplers on Amazon and keep listening to their baby and bombarding them with sound waves.
And how do you know that's true, what you're saying? That is causing that. How do you know it's true?
So when I trained at Yale, I worked with the doctor who brought ultrasound to America. And so the basic way that sound waves are, when you shoot a sound wave at the tissues, that energy can't just disappear. So it's converted into heat. And the other thing it does is it also makes some of the cells disintegrate. So when you have a tiny baby that's developing and you keep bombarding it with the ultrasound waves, you're heating the cells. And when you heat them, it damages their brains. So the NIH did studies, multiple studies around the world, in fact. The evidence that Jesse was asking about came from past NIH studies. The NIH conducted multi-center studies in which they analyzed brain biopsies and cerebral spinal fluid from autistic children and adults. The samples showed a pattern of inflammation consistent with thermal injuries. Back to our chat.
Do all women do that? They have ultrasound, all pregnant females?
Most women in America, yes. I've met a few.
Really? What correlation of age of the mother in pregnancy? How does that affect autism if the woman kind of old?
Yes, so the older they are, the more they can afford ultrasound, so they can go and get as many as they want.
But how about if they didn't have an ultrasound, but they have past a certain age? Could that cause autism?
No, there's not an age.
Come back to your phone.
There's a correlation between Down syndrome and age, maternal age, but not autism and maternal age.
How about if they drink or do drugs? Would that cause autism?
Generally, drinking and drugs will cause other issues, facial deformities, heart deformities, not autism.
I'm not a doctor, but I believe that the primary cause of quote-unquote autism is the nature of the woman, in that she's angry. And you all know that anger is evil, and that anger can even affect the baby in the body while the baby's still in the womb, because the spirit of anger is evil. And I'm not saying what you're saying about the ultrasound thing. That may be part of it as well. but I think the primary cause is anger.
Well, I would say what you're saying then would actually correlate with the same thing, because if they're angry and if they know, if I tell them, look, this ultrasound will cause cellular damage and the information's out there, and then they choose to do it anyway, I mean, that's an act of aggression towards the unborn baby.
So Hake has a little study right here that we have to run. What do you say?
I asked Grok, the AI. Grok says autism spectrum disorder, ASD, is correlated with the mother's age at pregnancy, particularly with advanced maternal age, typically defined at 35 years and older, with stronger effects often seen at 40 plus.
Yes, the woman over 40 has probably twice the number of ultrasounds as a woman at 20, because they say, oh, you're at risk. But the fact is, no matter how many ultrasounds she gets, it does not change or improve the outcome for the mom or the baby, regardless of the age. So they just keep getting the ultrasound saying, okay, well, I'm at risk, and I'm going to keep getting ultrasounds.
But Grok says that majority of well-designed studies found no association with prenatal ultrasound.
So then you want to ask Grok, say, okay, does ultrasound cause inflammation in the cells that it targets? Because ultrasound, my friend who brought it to the country, it used to be used to kill brain cells. So you could kill tumors in the brain without cutting open the skull.
Similar to how most people use AI, Hake asked Grok a very general question. Does prenatal ultrasound cause autism? In response, Grok gave Hake a very general and corporate type of response. In essence, no worries, dude, ultrasound is safe. Although that response was far from accurate, it would be enough to reassure the average American mom that ultrasound won't harm her baby. I wanted Hake to ask Grok another very specific question about ultrasound causing thermal injuries and inflammation in fetal brains. Today, I asked Grok that specific question. I'll show you the response and read the highlighted parts out loud. Grok, why does ultrasound cause inflammation and thermal injuries to brains? Ultrasound can cause thermal injuries and inflammation in brain tissue primarily through two main mechanisms: thermal effects, heating, and mechanical effects, often involving cavitation or shear forces, depending on the intensity, duration, and frequency. Thermal injuries. Ultrasound waves propagating through tissue are partially absorbed, converting acoustic energy into heat via viscous friction at the molecular level. This is a dominant mechanism for thermal effects. Heating is more pronounced in fetal or neonatal brains due to less developed bone but higher sensitivity, or when using pulsed Doppler modes, where stationary beams and higher intensities can elevate the intracranial temperatures by 4 to 5 degrees centigrade or more if exposure is prolonged. The thermal index on ultrasound devices estimates this risk, but it can underestimate the intracranial heating near bone. Sustained elevations, for example, greater than 4 degrees for several minutes, exceed thresholds for irreversible damage in sensitive neural tissue. Thermal injury disrupts cell membranes, denatures proteins, and triggers cell death pathways, leading to tissue damage. Inflammation. Inflammation often arises as a secondary response to either thermal or mechanical disruption. Significant heating releases damage-associated molecular patterns, an example, heat shock proteins, from dying cells, activating immune responses including cytokine release, like tumor necrosis factor alpha, immune cell infiltration from neutrophils and macrophages, and activation of astrocytes and microglia.
Let me do this. I got to run, Doc. I appreciate that information, but because of time, I got to run. But thank you very, very much. Grok don't know nothing. Grok was just born recently, right? AI.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, AI don't know anything.
A lot of us seem like we were just born yesterday, too.
AI is just saying what somebody put in there to say.
That's right.
I rest my case. Thank you, Doc. I totally appreciate it.
Now that you know how ultrasound affects cells, do you think vanity photos and videos for gender reveal parties is a healthy choice for your baby? Is it wise to purchase a Doppler for home use or going to your local mall for 3D and 4D scans of your baby? If you're worried that saying no to sonos will negatively affect you or your baby, then take comfort in knowing that multiple studies proved that routine ultrasounds offer no benefit to mom or babies. Specifically, there's no decrease in the morbidity or mortality of mom or baby who received routine ultrasounds. On the other hand, medically indicated ultrasounds can and do save lives. Scans that save lives are not in the same category as the countless unnecessary ultrasounds that the majority of American children are being exposed to. I'll ask you, might it be wise to wait and find out if it's a boy or a girl at the time of delivery? Here's what Steph from the Jimmy Dore Show had to say about that.
And ultimately, I'm not a doctor. I've never had a baby, but don't do the ultrasounds. Don't do them.
They're not good.
Before the ultrasound era, autism was at 0.5%. Now it's 4%. Skip the gender reveal to decrease the risk by 8 times. You don't need to know their gender. I know it would be fun, but you don't need to do, I would tell, if I had any friends that were having babies, don't do the ultrasound. We learned that from one of our friends.
Steph rocks, and she hit the nail on the head. Frankly, there isn't much to this. If American women simply said no to sono for 1 year, we could look at the rates of autism for that birth year compared to previous years. It's really that simple. Thanks for watching. Please comment and share.